Very good. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of council of March 5th, it being 7 p.m. We have the land acknowledgement in our agenda, and we have Councillors Bell, Toth, and Rowe online with us. Hope you folks are all okay. You can't be with us.
Thank you.
Okay, so guess we have the agenda in front of us, and I'd ask if there's any amendments or motions to be made. Councillor Shepherd, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to defer item 5.1.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? Okay, great. Second, Councillor Toth, thank you. And you want to speak to that, Councillor Shepherd?
Yeah, the property owner's agent has would like to, according to an email I've received, provide some information on they've just seen the report from staff. I know there's been a lot of discussion before between staff and the agent, but they've just seen the report that was coming onto the agenda. And I think they would like to provide further information about how they could attempt to bridge the gap where there's inability of the district to sort of pursue this. So it's really asking for a deferral so that they can organize themselves, submit something in writing, and then we can take a look at it again.
Thank you. Councillor Toth, anything? Actually,
Nope, I'm just seconding Councillor Shepherd's motion because I think it's the right thing to do. Procedurally, I don't actually think we're supposed to be discussing motions to defer, so I'm not going to make any comments at this time.
Yep, thank you. I was about to say that too, but okay, so we've got a motion seconded. We'll call a question. All in favor of deferral? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin is opposed. The motion carries. The matter is deferred. Okay, so with that, council, a motion to adopt the agenda, unless there's anything else. Motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Seconded. All in favor of adoption? Carried. And with that, we go to item 5.2. Councillor Rowe.
Yes, thank you. So the purpose of this motion is to bring clarity and process for any members of council who wish to open a discussion about any significant cuts to future operating budgets. Further, I'd like to identify that we as council set service levels, and as such, that discussion should be coming from council around where one thinks that service levels could be reduced, in my opinion. So I'd like to hear council's thoughts on this. The rationale is in the included with the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a seconder? Perhaps. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. And did you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I'm in support of this motion. We have a sort of ungainly process through the budget of looking at cuts. I mean, staff do a fabulous job trying to take the temperature of council and then following through on reducing things. So I'm really thankful for that. But especially this year, it's been because of our anticipation that things are going to get much more difficult, that we are trying to reduce the budget as in a very difficult environment. You know, we've had some sort of wild discussion on some big increases and then, in my opinion, decreases that just aren't practical. I'd really, we shouldn't bunch this discussion in the sort of last month or two of the budget. And I think the motion from Councillor Rowe attempts to establish a process. We're all serious about being very conservative here on the budget. So let's do this formally and properly through the year so that it isn't so erratic during the sort of 3 or 4 month budget discussion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I guess for me, this is a good idea, but I would like to see it put in practice throughout the year, not just for one date to look at these things. Some councils organize without committee of the whole, but they have committees for things like finances, a committee for planning, a committee for infrastructure. And I mean, I think there's just so much that we need to know to be able to get our heads around and understand in terms of policy, that it would have been beneficial to have our council do that. In fact, I recommended it, but the chair decided it would be committee of the whole. So I think this is perhaps a good time to consider. Should we have at least some kind of issues, which I think was part of the Cuff report, to be able to discuss issues that are pertinent on a regular basis outside of committee of the whole, because there's issues. There's a lot of issues, and I think some things we need to get a handle on, like the things I just mentioned. We've been through so much planning policy issues, and we don't know the infrastructure situations really, but here we have a proposal, you know, where we may need to provide a lot of infrastructure. So where are we at? So we haven't really got, I don't think, a good handle on that or other things. So rather than just say finances, we can look at, especially with the tariff situation, which changes on a daily basis, affecting people's livelihoods. I'm not so worried about the tariffs. That'll affect us with our district work. But I am concerned about how the public is going to be affected in terms of their affordability for their lives and how much taxation they can tolerate and what kind of infrastructure they're willing and growth they're willing to support, because it is unusual times. So I don't know if anybody would be willing to talk about that and consider that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see, Councillor Bell, your hand came down.
Yeah, there we go. Am I muted? I'm good. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
I think that Councillor Shepherd said a lot, and Councillor McLaughlin. So I think it's fairly clear. I'm going to support the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, I think this is this introduction and or motion is in reaction to a number of things that happened over the last number of weeks. If in fact those things hadn't occurred, I don't think we'd see this motion. Putting that thought aside, I think that going forward, we may need to have those budget committees that may come in on the fifth Wednesday of the month, perhaps in those cases where we have them, those fifth Wednesdays. In order to have that, it seems we are wedded to Wednesdays as meeting times, especially on those budget ones before 3. I'd love to see us Tuesdays with some of those budget meetings, maybe after 3, just to look at, as council knows, just for me to contribute sometimes, although the meetings would probably be longer if I was there. I was being facetious. Anyway, the thing is that in the past, though, with the procedure of budget, what we have had is the finance director introduce 3 separate kinds of budgets, 6%. And I've never seen, by the way, and although it's throughout BC, we're seeing this in a lot of places. Paul River is actually, I look to them when I feel down because of what they're going through right now, with all the considerations, including the community forests issue right now, more recently, which we should talk about one time. But we used to, have 3 kinds of budgets. As I said, I've never seen the increases so high in all my years of being on council. But we would ask the finance director to bring in a 3% budget. And sadly, we would actually ask for a 1 before, but now we have to say 3 because of our set 3. So a 3% budget and a 5% budget and a 7 or 7.5 budget. That's what we would ask them to do. And we would be given an example of what each means, and council can decide, and or council members at the beginning of the process ask for particular what this cut would look like, or this cut would look like, or what would happen if we did this. And that's a council driven, those are all council driven policies, rather than asking staff to make those difficult decisions, because honestly, we are elected to make those decisions by the people of Sechelt. So we are elected to make those tough decisions. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I'll just keep it real short. I'm not hearing a lot of discussion on the motion itself. I would love for us to have a conversation of, some sort of a budget debrief where we can talk about what we might want to do differently. I've got some background on the committee of the whole structure that I'd love to share, but it's not relevant to the motion, so I'll leave it for now. Otherwise though, I support the motion as it is. I think if we're going to be doing anything drastic or severe, we need to be signaling that to staff before they even start their processes. And to do anything else is just not fair to either the process or the staff or ourselves. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess it's my turn. First of all, I guess I would remind council that my effort at a motion was asking for options to reduce spending. It was not, and I certainly don't want anybody to think I was committed to achieving those reductions. I think we are, and I won't put myself at great length, but we are in a different time than we were even 3-4 months ago. I struggle with the practicality of this motion, because introducing July 1st as a deadline obliges staff to be working on it during, well, pretty much during April, May, and June, which is also when the audited financial statements are being worked on. And we don't have much in the way of experience for the current year, so we're using old data already. So I really don't understand, and I'd welcome some clarity on why why July 1st is being proposed. It also references reductions, and I don't think that's relevant. I think that if we're going to make major changes, that should come from whether it's increases or reductions. So this has become a bit of a, I don't know what you'd call it, but something that I struggle, that I don't think we should be isolating this to a negative or a reduction, as much as if it's about the significant, what we need to do for the best of Sechelt. I also would say to council, our job, I agree, we have the responsibility of setting service levels. That is a council duty, but we don't have the duty to identify which possibilities could be implemented to achieve those service levels. We don't know that. We don't have the data. We don't have the experience. So I think that the reference in the second paragraph is frankly simply wrong. In planning, set a broad service level, if you will, or a version of that, a policy. We call it the OCP, and we let staff go away and work within that and bring us back, in that case, planning proposals, applications, and so on. And budgets are no different. Yes, as Councillor Inkster, you've said, in years past, we may have said, give us 2 or 3 examples. And I have actually asked over the last 2 years for versions of what I posed a month ago. So, I don't think this is workable, Council. I think it's putting a burden on staff. And I think that frankly, we should be revisiting the issue of major changes to our service levels and our service decisions early in the fall. But it doesn't change that at the moment, we're facing a very different economic environment. And I think, as to my knowledge, many local governments, the province is very public about it. The federal government is public. We're reading and hearing in the media every day about the need to make changes in plans starting yesterday. So while it would be nice not to have to take this this added step, and it's somewhat different than the resolution, but I still think that we need to get our minds around what is the impact, if any, I'm open to that, of the changes in the economic situation, yeah, issue of tariffs and stuff. But sticking with the motion, I don't see how this can be workable for staff, and I think it's not achieving a good outcome for all of us. Councillor Inkster.
Is that just a reverberation from you or something? Okay. So this issue stands alone on its own in reference to some things that have happened more recently. I'm okay with the motion as it stands, and I'll be supporting it. Maybe we'll adjust in future based on where we go in future. In terms of our reactions to odd bilateral politics that we're dealing with right now, I would be really surprised if the governments in Canada, and obviously we're going to be talking a lot about this, there's a regional district motion before us to do something similar, I would be really surprised if the governments tighten their belts in the midst of this. I've never seen a reaction to tighten their belts whenever we hit tough economic times. So I'm unsure as to how we would necessarily do it at the municipal level with the reaction we may need to have to societal upheaval. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond. There's a very big difference. The province and the feds can run deficits, so they can keep going. All we have is the option of reducing our spending. So that's very different than the province, which of course has announced a 10-point-something billion deficit in the budget yesterday. I think Councillor Rowe, your hand was up first.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when I was contemplating putting this motion forward, I did talk to Director Douglas, and that's where July 1st came from. So that date came from staff. I too would agree with Councillor McLaughlin's thoughts around committee around finance, and I'm happy to have further discussion on this. And so this isn't the be all and end all. I just am trying to provide sort of some predictability for staff so that, you know, if they know we have something in mind that we want to see, that they get that information early.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell?
Yeah, so one of my questions has been answered because you had commented a few times on you were concerned about what this would mean to staff. And it sounds like Councillor Rowe did have a discussion with Director Douglas around the timeline. So that's the answer to one of my questions. And what I am hearing in the many comments that have been made, that there seems to be a desire to have certainly some sort of a debrief. And what that looks like is, can be decided upon later. But I think it's important that I guess my clarification question is that Councillor Toth mentioned a budget debrief, and I would like to support that, and I just don't want to lose that request, and wonder if that can be actioned or how that might be actioned at some point coming forward.
Councillor Rowe, do you want to take that on?
I'm happy to add an amendment to the motion, something akin to that. And staff organize a budget debrief session with council.
Okay, I wasn't sure, was offering it to you because you've talked to to Director Douglas, whether you had any insights into whether this was part of the plan. We know.
No, this was straight out of my little brain, and I only discussed it with him in the sense of, if I were to bring this motion forward, this is the intent. What date would you suggest that I put in? There was no further discussion than that. So, I mean, we could vote on this motion, and it sounds like either Councilors Toth or Bell would like to maybe make a motion about a debrief.
Yeah, okay. Counselor Toth, your hand is up.
Thank you. That was exactly going to be my suggestion. I think a debrief is important. I agree we don't want to lose it. Not particularly germane to the motion that's on the floor specifically. So happy to make something after we vote on this.
Okay, so I just want to reinforce, I'm going to be voting against this because it's isolated to reductions. That is not part of a rigorous budget process in my experience. So, and as I say, I think the timing is wrong. But, okay, anything else? Councilor Toth, your hand is up, or? Okay, sorry,
Yes,
Councilor McLaughlin.
just a little comment through the chair. I will be supporting this. It's a start, which is a good thing. But I am sort of wondering about how have we defined levels of service? We're saying we want to take them into account, but we haven't really defined a lot of those things. I know we were going to do a community services plan, which would be helpful in terms of defining what our services are, to what level they're provided, and to what level we would either like to discuss increasing them or changing them in the future. So I'm doing it on faith, supporting this motion, hoping that we can learn more about levels of service, because levels of service are not just whether you decide to increase your budget or decrease it. It's about the services you provide and why you provide them. Yeah, thank you.
Very much agree. That's part of the complexity, that to understand the assumptions underlying the numbers. Okay, anything else? Call a question, all in favor? And I'm opposed. Thank you. The motion carries. Council, we then move to item 6.1.
If I may.
Sorry, yep, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that staff schedule a budget debrief session for a committee of the whole meeting after budget adoption.
Okay, after budget adoption. Okay, so open-ended, but, okay. Thank you, Councillor Bell. Second. Okay, any discussion on that? Not on a Wednesday at 10 o'clock, Councillor Inkster? Be nice. Okay. Okay, all in favor? Carried. All right, now, unless there's something else, we'll go to item 6.1. This is 5476 Mills Road. And I believe we have Mr. Hall with us. Is there anything you want to highlight or amplify from your report?
Sure, thank you, Council. So this was given first reading 2 weeks ago. Council asked that it be brought back to this meeting. Since that time, the applicant has made a number of changes to their proposal. So in terms of the zoning amendment bylaw itself, where we were looking at reducing the minimum lot size, reducing setbacks, and increasing parcel coverage, they have decided they will stick with the existing minimum lot size currently in the R6 zone, which is 300 meters squared. So they won't be reducing that. But they're keeping the setback reduction proposed from 3 meters down to 1.5 meters, and they've reduced the lot coverage increase from the original proposed of going from 50% to 70% to only going to 60%. So we've updated the zoning bylaw to reflect those changes, so it's ready for second and third reading if council wishes. Ultimately, this would result in only 7 lots being created on the property. Each could still have up to 4 units on it. So they're still sticking with the intent to try to do a 4-plex on each of these lots, still the rear lane. Everything else is basically the same. There is an approximate site plan that's been drafted up attached to the report that kind of shows what the layout would look like based on the 7 lots and the sort of 60% lot coverage. The only other thing I would highlight is just as we're grappling with all these kinds of applications, the housing needs report is still kind of front and center in terms of dealing with development applications moving forward, both as part of the OCP and policy updates, but also the kind of highlighting the need over the short term and the long term for a wide variety of units, and trying to grapple with how this type of development will come into Seychelles. Obviously, not everything will turn into exactly like this, but the need for a broader range of housing types. Right. So.
Okay. Thank you. So just to summarize it, now we're at 7 lots instead of 8. And then page 13, first time I read this, the crossouts are what we're in for first reading, and underneath is the modification that the builders or the applicant has agreed to make.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Inkster.
Thank you. Obviously, the change may be in response to maybe some council concern, because the community concern I didn't see until the last couple of weeks. We've seen some community concern with the change from the original plan. This is one of those ones again where we're going to second and third. I see the footprint, and maybe it's on the online version. I hope not, where I don't see much of the buildings. So my assumption is if the footprint has changed, then we're going up. And so once again, and by the way too, and I threw some council members off, I think what I was referring to was High Point when I said that that was putting High Point in West Seychelles, not the other one that I said that threw some council members off. But I meant High Point. And because of the density and the higher buildings that are present there that will go across the street from some single family. So the other thing I was.
So can we just, you've got one question, which is, you said something about now that we're at 7 lots, your assumption is the buildings are going up?
Yeah, because the numbers of units are similar. So I obviously,
Okay, so
I'm not hearing much change.
get an
Yeah,
answer.
okay, sure. Yeah.
The height hasn't changed, so the buildings were proposed at 3 stories. The R6 zone currently, similar to the changes we made as part of the small-scale multi-unit housing amendments for duplex, triplex, quadplex, et cetera, those heights are all 11 meters, so it allows for 3 stories for these housing forms. So that hasn't changed. So
Okay, so the answer to that question is no change on height.
no. So the previous drawings from the last meeting were showing 3-story buildings. So that hasn't changed.
Okay, and is the reduction, has the change not changed? It's 11 meters now then?
Yes.
That's basically the same?
Yeah, the height isn't changing. Not in the zoning bylaw, not in what.
Yeah, okay, and just to go down that line, I got some other questions, but maybe
please,
after others. So is the 11 meters, like, just to get a picture of it, is 11 meters the size of that house in Davis Bay?
If you take the flood construction level is 2 meters.
Yeah.
So there's the 2 meters of fill, and then with the if we take just the 8.5 meter height limit on top of that, you're at 10.5 meters. So I guess with the building being 40 centimeters over height, you're almost at 11 meters if you were to go to from the bottom of the FCL of the flood construction level to the top of the building, technically would be 11 meters. But again, in terms of the height calculation, the bylaw defines average natural grade, average finish grade. We talk about the midpoint of the roof. So on these properties, we're looking at what is the lower number in terms of average natural versus average finish grade, and then from there to the midpoint of the roof. So it's hard to directly kind of compare what 11 meters looks like on one property to another property, but the calculation is still the same.
Yeah, I just threw that out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I could use the example of McCourt and Jasper, the buildings that that are in there now, as you may know, and how tall they are as an example. It's just difficult because we're talking in meters here, right? What does that mean, right? So the buildings down the road, then anybody that travels through there knows those are quite high, but they're 2-story. And it's tiered. It's not on flat ground, so it's tiered land. So people are looking over each other.
Which is, this is on.
Well, no, this is not tiered necessarily because the people all around them are at the same level, but yeah, but the other one's sloped in West Sechelt, so.
Okay, can I come back to you in a
Yeah,
minute?
sure.
Yeah. Counselor Bill? You're muted, Counselor Bill.
There it goes. Thank you. I know that this isn't going to make a significant difference in the green space, but I know that that was certainly one of the discussions in our last meeting around the concern that there wouldn't be a lot of green space for the kids to play on. Now, does that add some green space to the front of the buildings? As I say, not significant, but is that part of a change?
Not necessarily to the front of the building. I mean, if you look at the lot layout that's attached to the staff report, they kind of had an approximate building footprint shown in gray on the lots to kind of highlight what the 60% looks like. If we assume that the building is sited exactly within that gray area, then you could say that there would be more space in a side yard setback.
Mm.
There was a 1.5 meter setback from the side property line, and I would say there's probably another 1.5 meters at least between that setback line and the building wall, so that you would end up potentially with sort of a 3 meter plus kind of side yard area. So in that sense, yes.
Okay.
With the reduction in lot coverage from
Great.
70% to 60%, you do end up with a larger potential yard area likely on its side.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That's okay. Great. Thank you, Counselor Tough.
Thank you. I appreciate the drawings that we saw at the last meeting, but through you to staff, I'm just seeking some clarity because we're talking about zoning bylaw amendments, and I'm pretty sure they don't cover form and character. And so this project is still going to have development permits come forward that will consider form and character. And I'm just looking for confirmation of that from staff. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, that's on page 13. It does reference that the application will require DPs and DVPs.
Yeah,
So-
development permit area 8 does
Right.
apply, so, and that does require council approval, so there will be it's both part of the subdivision application, but also there's sort of form and character aspects, so we would deal with both of those at the time of the subdivision application, so there will be a DP brought back to council for consideration at that time.
Okay, Counselor Tough? Yeah, thank you. Okay, Counselor McLaughlin?
I do have comments, but Darren does have his light
That's
on.
fine.
Yes, through the chair. I guess this is some accommodation to reduce one lot. But again, I go back to my previous critique where the 4 lots would be more appropriate to put this kind of density on. To me, this is not gentle density when you take big normal lots, subdivide them into half, and then put as many homes onto each lot that you ever planned. I think Bill 44 encourages us to do things, but I don't think this is appropriate given this is the Sunshine Coast and not Surrey. The community has already said they do not like the form and character with this particular layout. And So even if we come back later with form and character, what's the point? They've already told us they do not like the form and character. I do not think it is appropriate form and character myself. And is it attractive? Not according to the community. We said it should be attractive. Are there amenities? Not really. Is it close to services? No. So if you push forward with this type of design, and councillors may well do that at their peril, they will be responsible for the impact of this development on this community. I do not want to be responsible for that. Let me finish.
So do you have a
And,
question?
well, we're allowed to explain why we're voting a certain way too.
Do you
I
have a
don't need to
question
have
though?
questions. Well, here's one question. Where have you seen this kind of density on such small lots? This 4 housing units on one lot under the guise of single-family development in basically a rural community? I would like to know, where is that? I can't see it. I haven't seen it. So I just wonder why we're doing it here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have seen it, but I'll defer to Director Allen.
I just wanted to clarify, and I don't think that we're providing this under the guise of single-family dwelling. I think we're on the forefront of what the province has demanded and expected from us through the Residential Amendment Statutes Act, and this is one of our first efforts of it. The areas, the transit-oriented areas in the more urban environments allow up to 6. The less urban areas like Sechelt is 4. So this is on the forefront. The difference here being that there's a subdivision to create new lots to do this. Each and every lot in Sechelt Village right now is presently zoned for the 4 dwellings. It would be difficult to do 4 large dwellings, and we'll uncover some of that through the development permit. But we feel as though this is setting the stage, the difference here being that it's a subdivision to create more lots. But it's kind of, we're particularly here in Sechelt on the forefront of this newer type of land use and housing.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yeah, if
We'll
I
go to-
could comment on that. So are you thinking, if
To
this
me,
is,
please.
if this is the forefront, are you going to allow lots in the village area be subdivided to be that small and have lots created that we could then sell lots and develop a 4-unit multifamily building on downtown where there are amenities, where it is close to food stores where people can walk? Because my also concern is that this is car culture. And this is a lot of units to be pressed together with car culture. And I would much rather see it happening, helping us revive the downtown and be able to have this lot size, which is currently not in our policy. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to?
And I recognize the challenges of location and share the concern about car culture. I do acknowledge and agree with that, but it is a challenge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I would add, I don't agree that the community doesn't like this. I don't agree with that statement. Certainly, I read and seen and heard some people don't like it, but there's a lot of people that need this type of housing, whether it's affordability, whether it's smaller units because they choose to live in smaller units. So I think, I think that we will find other ways to deal with the car culture. I believe that will happen with improved public transit and even active transportation. So, yeah. Okay, Councillor Inkster, then Councillor Shepherd, and then Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Just in reference to the report that was presented by staff that looks like the need for a number of units. I mean, we've approved a number of those units that we have a need for over the last number of years. This council's been very clear. I just have difficulty with square pieces being put in round holes in some neighborhoods. Those close by are the ones that are complaining and those are the ones that are affected. We can't talk about people that are, downtown or 8 blocks away that aren't complaining. They would not. So those affected where their neighborhood's affected. And we always have to consider how we would like our neighborhood to be affected and or look. what we want to see when we look out our windows, what we want to see when we walk down our road, more vehicles in this case. Looking out our windows in this case is higher buildings. And this is about height, form and character. I didn't talk about overhangs. I talked about the height. That was my focus. And so that's a really big concern. In terms of density, in terms of this area, we really haven't, based on where this neighborhood started in long lots from the highway to Norwest Bay and what it's become and divided into the smaller lots cut up where the single family dwelling, that's kind of where this neighborhood is. The density that we could talk about density in and around Upper Nickerson in those areas. That's an area where we could most likely look at density in West Sechelt, partly because it's on a hillside. We also could talk about density in McCourt. And we're looking at density in farther up Norwest Bay and West Sechelt to the left around Wakefield. That's where we can do density based on the fact that there's slopes in those areas. We need to be thoughtful when we put in density so that houses don't have to look at really tall buildings next to them. There should be an opportunity to look over them. So those are my concerns. But my question is we have a number of buildings now, thank goodness, that are coming on stream in the downtown core. They're being built finally. And we're waiting for some others that we've approved because we're supportive of housing, and I certainly am. How many units are those buildings that we see being built going to provide within the next, I would say, 12 to 18 months?
How many
So we're talking
units
about,
are going to be finished
Greencourt,
in the next 18 months?
Greencourt,
Yes.
TELUS, and Community Services. How many units? Just those three, because we have an identification, but we've also approved many others. So this is not going to be this is not going to be the solution or the be all and end all if we say no to this and say go back to 7 lots, which I'm comfortable with. Thanks.
Okay. I think the answer is about 250 units, perhaps, of very different housing.
Correct. Of those 3 particular ones that
Mhm.
Councillor Sir reference would be more like 185 at a very quick count. But there are others. That's just the
Mhm.
3, not
Yeah.
to mention the one around the corner here on Short Cliff that we're moving
Right.
towards building
Right.
permit on as well.
Right, but that wouldn't be built in 12 to 18 months at this point.
Not occupied.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think I said Councillor Toth and then Councillor Shepherd. Is that okay? Councillor Toth, you're on.
Thank you. So I'm in Grand Forks right now, and I just want to say, like, here, there is all sorts of weird density, and it's a lot more rural of a community than Sechelt is. There's an 8-unit apartment building on a single family lot, and they don't have enough parking stalls. You know what? You make it work. For better or worse, the province has rammed density changes down our throats. We've also heard from the Conservative candidates that not only would we have that to continue to work on and look forward to, but that they'd also be holding back infrastructure funding unless we approve increases to density. Our community seems to want more amenities, more services, more trails, more parks, more police, more whatever, and we can't keep having half-acre or 1-acre lots to pay for that. I do want to say that I appreciate that this is a developer that actually seems to be building something in Sechelt. Too many of the developers that we've seen in the last few years are only seeming to take advantage of the community. They beg and plead for density and speak of affordability, and then immediately flip their properties once they get approval from us. So I appreciate that this does actually seem to be a project that will get built. I appreciate that they heard our concerns the last time we discussed it. 8 lots down to 7 lots doesn't sound like a lot. That is 4 less units of housing with the price point that, corresponds to that. But it is in relation to the concerns that we as a council have raised. And, we've heard as well from the community and from the community association in the last 2 weeks. I think generally I support this going forward at this time because of the changes that have been made. And we are still going to be seeing development permit and DVPs coming forward. So the conversation on this project is far from over. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Toth. Councillor Shepherd, thank you for your patience.
Sure. No, I'm actually glad to speak last because it's so torturous, this application. Because it's just such a difficult issue. I wanted to assure the people who wrote in, we are reading all of these letters and trying to balance things out between what the province is insisting on and the local community concerns. It's just a really difficult issue. So for my part, I'm not going to support this recommendation. I'm generally in support of the development. I would rather see less density on the site. I think I said that last time this came before council as well. So something in the order, and I recognize, as Councillor Toth has, that the developer has moved very quickly to amend their site plan. However, for my part, I'd look for no variation of the setbacks, to create a little bit more space, and also to vary the site plan a bit so that perhaps there are four fourplexes, two triplexes, two duplexes. So we have a bit more variation and less density that's of people and cars that are hitting that street. That's leading on to I apologize for this, but next question. I take it at this point in the development, if I could ask through the chair of staff, there's been no traffic study, no parking study yet?
Mr. Hall, can you,
No, not for this application.
that would be unusual for a project of this size?
Yeah, I'd have to look back to see if there would have been something for the previous rezoning, but given they haven't really changed the density proposed for this application, that we're really just looking at regulations that are about tweaking the subdivision rather than really changing the land use or density, that there's no increase in units or change in the unit type, that we weren't seeking any additional information on that.
So and my apologies, does that mean that a traffic study's been done or?
I can't say for sure. I'd have to check back the original application to see if one was done or not.
Thank you. The reason I ask is that, looking at everyone's letters, that turns out to be really one of the top sort of three concerns. How many cars are going to be resulting from this development? Where are they parking? Are they parking on the site? Are they being forced onto the street? So, for me to approve something going forward, I recognize that it's almost asking for more information that hasn't been asked, perhaps hasn't been asked for at this stage. But I'd have to know that answer. So leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Inkster, you wanted another question?
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't sure if we were nearing the end, but I would not want to go forward to approve this without asking some more questions. I am also interested in the traffic and parking. If anybody if I'm assuming council knows that on one side of the street, it's an older road with different width requirements, that road. So what that means is that when people park on the road, the other side really doesn't have a lot of room, and there's a ditch on both sides, so you can't just park in the bush like some people do in their neighborhoods. They certainly do in mine, but there's a ditch there on both sides, so you really have nowhere to go. So if you have traffic on both sides, there would be a concern over the speed of vehicles moving, but also animals, people's dogs, and/or children that are hidden behind vehicles, with vehicles moving up and down that street fast because there's a highway right at the base of Mills. So we need to consider all those questions. So through to you, how are we going to seriously look at parking? Because with more units come more parking, and as we all know, it is still a park-based culture. If you look at Jasper and Piccadilly and West Sea Shelton, drive through there, where people park on both sides, you actually have to weave through the traffic And it's not, those aren't very busy roads on Piccadilly anyway. So you have to actually have to weave and wait for people to come. So once you put families in there trying to move around and or animals, it's a little bit dangerous. Thanks.
Okay,
And that was a question. Just curious.
yes.
Yeah.
So the question is, well, maybe we start with how many parking in the development? What is the proposal for parking?
Sure, I mean, as part of the zoning amendments we made for the small-scale multi-unit housing, we did change the parking requirements. So where traditionally it would be 2 spaces per dwelling unit, for the SHMU units, the duplex, triplex, et cetera, in the R2, R3, R4 zones or R6, was reduced to 1 space per dwelling unit. So for a fourplex on this lot, it would be 4 spaces, where normally, previously it would have been 8. So they are meeting that requirement. There's 4 parking spaces that would be at the back of each of these quadplexes.
Okay, thank you.
So the intent is like they're meeting the parking requirements that are required to provide on-site parking spaces. As part of the subdivision, obviously, they're responsible for their road frontage, so they've got a little bit of frontage on Jasper and Christian, and obviously their length on Mills. So all of that, all of that is open for improvement in terms of road upgrades, looking at widening the road, putting in on-street parking, whatever we would need to look at to improve that section of road. Same as for the middle section that had the previous zoning approval for the townhouse development.
Right, right. Okay. Yes, Councillor Inkster.
Thanks. Just in reference to that, and this is just another Seashelt example. When Green Court was built, we thought there was enough parking, probably, based on the number of units, the number of parking spots in and around that building, which includes more housing in behind and the parking that's connected and throughout that. In many cases, what you're seeing at Green Court is parking all around the area, but also parking sometimes at our baseball field because of the numbers of vehicles that people end up having. So, and that's a downtown example. This is a little different outside of the downtown core in a residential neighborhood where there could be parking all over the street with the certain safety concerns. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. I would offer, because I've noticed that, you recognize the cars, the same cars in the same parking spots around Hackett. But my reaction to it is it works. You know, yes, maybe we would have been nice to have more parking on site, but it's working. Councilor McLaughlin.
Further, thank you to the chair on the parking issue. I think there was some parking that was available to the residents at Green Court, which now with the new building going into place, that parking is not going to be available. So perhaps half the cars that were seemingly parking on the site will not be allowed to park there anymore. That's what I understand. Now, yeah, they are parking around Hackett Park because, you know, there's construction going on and such. But also in the summer, it's not going to be acceptable. People need to be able to park around there. So for people to be from one development, and then we're going to add another 94 units on there, which may also have inadequate parking.
We're talking about Mills Road now, so.
Well, I'm talking about Green Court.
Yeah.
So it could be a problem. We're talking about parking in general. So I think we have to be careful about parking. And especially for accessibility, people in Green Court, a lot of those people, they really need their cars because they can't walk very well, honestly, and they're elderly. So something to consider. Thank you.
Councillor Toth, thanks for waiting.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about Green Court. I don't know if council or members of council know about the Strong Towns principles, or there's a YouTube channel called Not Just Bikes that I would encourage everybody to go check out some of their videos. When you build your roads with cars as the priority, your cars travel faster, your safety goes down, you generally have more problems. And certainly we've seen that with Cowrie Street up past the high school, right? Nice wide open road, and we're getting complaints about speeding up there on a daily basis. So when I hear like, oh, you gotta weave around the cars and it's not safe, and weaving around the cars slows the other vehicles down. Like a kid runs out between two cars and you're going 10 kilometers an hour, you can stop. If you're doing 70 because it's a nice wide open road, you might not stop when that kid darts out between two cars. So if we're ever going to move people away from cars being the only option or the default option, we need to make it more inconvenient for you to own 2 or 3 or 5 vehicles. I've got a friend in Seashelt that owns a townhouse. He's got a 2-car garage. He owns no vehicles. And that's like, and he doesn't really use it for storage because it's not insulated well or anything like that. It's an added cost. It's an added inconvenience. And he doesn't drive. Like, there are people that are going to love the idea of something that's more affordable because we're not dedicating 8 parking spots per property to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bell, your hand was up and then it came down. And you're muted. Muted still. There you go. Nope. Oopsie.
Time with my feet.
Nope.
It's weird tonight. Anyway, sorry. It's very temperamental. I was actually going to be on the same soapbox as Councillor Toth. So you actually took some of that, some of my rhetoric. So I completely agree. I think that as we look forward in the reading that I'm doing is that in fact parking is going to become more of an issue in terms of more of a discussion around less parking and just minimum parking. I think that's going to happen more and more. So that's just a comment I had around Councillor Toth's point.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Shepherd.
Through the chair, could I direct a question to planning? So we have 7 fourplexes now is the current proposal. Would these fourplexes be allowed secondary dwellings within each? Just trying to get a grasp at how
Okay.
many.
No. So the 4 units, it's 4 dwelling units, and a secondary suite is considered a dwelling unit. So in the zoning, whether it's the R6 or the amendments we made to R2, R3, R4, how you get to the 4 dwelling units, there's a variety of ways of getting there, and taking from the provincial guidelines, what we've written into the zone is, that could be a house, a duplex, quadplex, et cetera, but suites are part of that. So no, for a fourplex, that's the 4 units. You don't get a
So
suite.
it's not 4+.
No, it's if you had a duplex, you could have a suite in each half of the duplex, and that would count as 4 units.
Okay.
But and there's like maybe building code issues to separate a duplex from a quadplex. But yeah, ultimately, like a suite is still considered a dwelling unit. That's still part of the 4 units. So no, there's no fourplex with a suite for 8 units because that
Okay,
would
no,
impede-
that's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, folks? Okay, I think I'll just end with, we've really got to make sure we send the right signals to the investment community, the ones that are funding to build these things, because everybody agrees we need housing. So I'll call the question. This is question, of course, is the recommendation to give second and third reading. So
We don't have it on the floor yet.
So would you like to move it, Councillor Toth? And second? Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 4-3. With Councillors McLaughlin, Inkster, and Shepherd opposed. Okay, Council, then we go to the bylaw itself, which I believe is on page 16. And this is bylaw number 580-18, 2025, as printed. And a motion to give second and third reading. Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Second, Councillor Bell. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Shepherd, Inkster, and McLaughlin opposed. The motion carries. All right, thank you, everybody. Wholesome discussion. Council will go to page 18, which is the minutes of the meeting of February 19th. Are there any concerns or not? Nope. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adopt, please. Councillor Shepherd, thank you. I think I saw a hand in Zoom land. Thanks. And all in favor of adoption? Carried. And then we go to page 28. Oops, I've jumped one, haven't I? No, I missed page 25, sorry. Page 25 is our meeting of February 26th. Councillor Inkster, do you have a question?
Yeah, there was confusion. You introduced, did you ask for introduction of the airport committee minutes
Nope.
because you missed 25 pages, you said, or?
No,
Okay, just, yeah,
we got a motion to approve February 19th, and we're now on page 25, which relates to the minutes of February 26th.
okay.
So, any concerns, Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, I just thought I heard you say
On
February
this?
18th earlier, so
Yeah.
it's got really confusing there, so, yeah. Yeah, I know, but.
Okay. Okay.
Move to adopt.
Thank you. Second. All in favor? Carried. We will go to the meeting of the Airport Development Select Committee on page 28. Thank you. Thank you. Second, I'll second that. I wasn't there for the whole meeting, but anyways. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Adopted. Which point we go to our council reports. And maybe we'll start with the person in the room and go to the person in Grand Forks after that. How's the SCRD doing, Councillor Inkster?
Good. Yeah, good. I just talked about something earlier about the tariff issue. Not much else to say. More meetings to come.
Okay,
Thanks.
great, thank you. Councillor Toth, anything to add?
Thank you. Just one real quick thing to touch on, which is that I can't remember now if I've reported on this, so please cut me off if I have, that we're officially we're changing our finance committee to a budget committee, so it'll only meet at the budget for the budget process specifically, in the lead up to setting utility rates and then into budget in the new year. The audit report, Sophie, all of those things are all now going to be spread into the committee of the whole meetings. We're working really hard to rein in the sheer number of meetings that we've been having, because directors have been starting to feel a lot of burnout from everything that we've been doing and taking on, which has had some success. We canceled the committee of the whole meeting last week because we didn't have anything for the agenda. So, Councillor Inkster mentioned the tariffs conversation. We did read in a notice of motion to bring forward representatives from each of the governments on the coast, as well as the Chamber and SDBA, the MLA, and the MP, to discuss exactly that, the tariff situation and how we respond to sort of a Team Canada. It's going to be on the March 13th board meeting. We're away, many of us are away at LGLA, but it's too important to wait. So we're going to have our alternates voting on it on our behalfs if there's enough alternates in the room. Thanks.
Good to hear, thank you. Okay, I wasn't ready for this, so how about we go in Zoom land, which means Councillor Rowe, Councillor Bell, Councillor Toth, and then we'll go from my right to left.
All right, pretty short this week. Attended the SCAF meeting with councillors Shepherd and Toth for good discussion. And mark your calendars because their next emergency preparedness session is going to be on May 10th. So some discussions around what that's going to look like this year, and very timely because we've had some shake, rattle, and roll, so that'll probably be a popular event. And be looking for ways to support that. Also attended the committee that's one of Kelly Foley's working groups, the Pathways Out of Homelessness, looking at recovery housing. So we haven't done it, but the group has commissioned a needs assessment for the Sunshine Coast for recovery housing, and that assessment is just being completed, and then they will bring it forward to present to the different municipal governments. So that's very exciting, and the data is pretty not surprising, but pretty scary in numbers. That's it for this week.
Good, thank you. Counselor Bell?
Yes, so I attended the Sunshine Coast Homeless Advisory Committee meeting, and I want to highlight a very important date, which is today, Wednesday, March the 5th, because this is the official 2025 point-in-time homeless count, which is taking place from 8 to midnight. There are a number of magnet events that have taken place today, including a barbecue at high tide to welcome people to participate in the survey. This is critical information for all levels of government and nonprofits, as the information gathered, including some demographic data, helps the province and nonprofit agencies better understand any changes over the years and what that means for advocacy asks and the kind of programs being delivered. So I just want to thank you to everyone volunteering in this very important project out there, and the very best. And I want to thank all of those who helped out, as I say, with this extremely important project. I attended the Vancouver Coastal Health Local Governments Liaison meeting on February 21st. It was hosted by the VCH Board Chair, Dr. Penny Ballum, and it was an opportunity for elected officials to provide updates and discuss healthcare topics of mutual interest. So there were representatives from right across the coast that were there, and some good updates I'm sure that will be coming forward around some of the things like Shorncliffe and Totem. The other thing that I want to just mention is, of course, we know that the budget has come out for the province, and there's two things that I just want to highlight from our perspective in terms of how much we've been talking about advocacy. And certainly one is that BC Builds is adding an additional 318 million investment in 2025. So we want to keep an eye out on a possible opportunity there. And then the other thing is the whole thing around community safety, closing encampments and supporting most vulnerable. Budget 25 provides an additional 90 million over 3 years to expand the Homeless Encampment Action Response Team, which is HEART, and Homeless Encampment Action Response Temporary Housing HEART programs into new communities. So that's another one, again, that we want to maybe be first at the starting line in terms of thinking about what we might want to do and maybe advocate for. So just wanted to highlight those two key things. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Counselor Bell, Counselor Shepherd.
The last couple of weeks, another airport development committee. We are just fine tuning the master plan. And I'm hoping it's ready fairly soon for distribution. Great news from staff that they've contacted a retired official from Transport Canada who's giving us some fabulous advice on the development steps for the airport, which is really handy to have. I also participated in the Downtown Business Association visioning exercise. I think the mayor was there as well. A sort of broad spectrum of people focused on what can be done for the downtown to help enliven it. Some great ideas. And of course, we're still waiting for news from their grant application to hear about that. Attended the foundation agreement ceremony with the Sea Nation to see them congratulate all of the provincial officials, several ministers who put so much work into the foundation agreement and the renewal of it, which was great to see. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Inkster.
Did we talk about the Longhouse event? I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just, there's so many cool things that have happened with the she shells. So I just, anyway, Longhouse event was a great event with a number of politicians from Sunshine Coast and otherwise, and council members there. As usual, another good event with she shell. The other thing I wanted to mention was chamber luncheon that happened a couple of days ago. It was a good opportunity, and it's one of those opportunities that we don't often get outside of our duties to talk to other community members, business community members about some of the things that they're dealing with and or in business for. And so it was good to be there and ask, and a number of us asked questions, myself and yourself asked some questions of the MP and got some good answers, especially on how the government is reacting, some of the challenges we're dealing with right now. But it was also good to talk to some tourism people and also a business, one of the companies that's doing a lot of business more recently on the Sunshine Coast, and encouraging them to do more on the Sunshine Coast. You take those opportunities whenever you get them to invest more in the Sunshine Coast. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Counselor Toth, I see your hand up. Is that?
Yes, I was one of the folks online that you were going to first, but you skipped right over me, so.
Oh, did we? Okay, well, we'll get you right after Counselor McLaughlin.
Perfect.
Bad habit of doing that the last two meetings. Counselor
Yeah.
McLaughlin.
Well, mine's pretty brief because people have kind of talked about the meetings we had. But yeah, the foundation agreement meeting was very touching, very important. Also, I was at the SCAF meeting too. And also I was at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon. So that was interesting to hear our MP speak and have the questions that everybody's got on their minds. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, drum roll, Counselor Toth.
Thank you. Yeah, I was also going to highlight that I'm pretty sure Councillor McLaughlin was at that SCAF meeting, so it's all good. I think the most important couple things I wanted to touch on, the Sunshine Coast Community Forest is doing some sort of joint work with somebody who is doing some lumber milling. Somebody's building a home on Vancouver Island, and they specifically wanted to use community forest wood to do a lot of the softening and trim work and things like that. So our community forest was sort of asked if they could provide the logs, and there's a fellow from up north that's come down to do the milling, and got to do a tour of that operation before I went out of town last week, which was really awesome. Community forest is considering all sorts of possible ways to do more of these kind of partnerships. When I was there with Warren and Sarah, we were talking about they were sort of exploring the idea of doing a more permanent mill setup or kilns or any sort of partnerships to do value add to use more of our wood here in our community, or at least sort of within the coastal area, instead of just seeing the logs disappear to wherever. Yeah, so super cool. Looking forward to seeing more of that kind of partnership coming forward. Also attended a presentation put on by the BC area associations like AVICC and the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, things like that. And that one was featuring Don Lidstone, and it was being presented as an update to the work that's being done to modernize the Local Government Act. The idea was that the community charter was adopted in 2003. And the Local Government Act was supposed to follow right behind that, only it never did. And so here we are 22 years later with a lot of things that don't match between the two legislations or contradict each other, things like that. And so Don Lidstone's been spending the last couple of years sort of advocating and spearheading a mission to update the Local Government Act, which I think a lot of areas would welcome sooner rather than later. So the only other thing I think I'll touch on is that also going to be attending a town hall event put on by the Sunshine Coast Chamber this Friday, also talking about the tariffs. So it's definitely front of mind for everybody. Yeah, and I think I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Yes, there's a benefit to going last. I was going to talk about the chamber on March 7th at 5 p.m., but I won't. I attended VCH, the STBA visioning, the chamber lunch with Patrick Weiler, and I got to see the milling operation working today when when the community forest had the actual milling going. I also was invited to attend the Metro Vancouver board meeting last Friday in Burnaby. Very interesting to see how you manage a meeting with 41 participants, plus staff. They were beginning or announcing their governance review process, among many other things. I also had the opportunity to attend a dinner celebration honoring 6 new recipients of what's called the Fellow designation by the BC Chartered Professional Accountants Association, something, of course, that I'm a member of, and I was fortunate enough to be honored with that award many years ago. Many councillors and I met with Keith Roy and 2 experienced MPs regarding their experiences and views on crime and how to address that in Canada. And some of you are aware I'm involved with the Global EV Alliance, and you'll beg your indulgence, but we're pretty happy to announce that we got our 40th country to join this alliance. So we're pretty interesting group when you put people from everywhere from South Africa to Austria to Costa Rica to Russia. We had the APC meeting last night where we welcomed 5 new members, and staff did a good job of orientation, and look forward to a vibrant, energized discussion from that group. And I will end with, I managed to actually get 2 days at the Rugby Sevens in BC Place, where I was amazed how many people from the coast were there. So next year, we're going to try and get a section. We'll rename the section the Sunshine Coast section or something. Yeah. Oh, and I did attend some of Don Lidstone's Local Government Act update. So, other than that, not much. Council, with that, we can go to page 31, and this is a letter from the BC Farmers Market seeking a letter of support for their coupon program. Look for council's direction. Yes, Councillor Inkster?
To give them a letter of support.
Excellent.
Yep.
Okay. Second, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. And then the second one is a letter of support that Arrowhead is seeking in regards to some funding that is apparently not committed for the next year. I think council here in the room, we've all received a draft of a proposed letter. So looking for your guidance. Councillor Shepherd? Okay, seconded. Thank you. Okay, any discussion? All in favor of issuing the letter? Carried. And I think that's it. We have nothing to release, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Seconded. All in favor? We are adjourned.